team of firefighters were called to a house fire. At first it seemed the flames were coming from the kitchen, but when they sprayed the source of the fire kept raging as if nothing had happened. They tried again, and still there was no difference. The lieutenant gathered all the crew in the living room to plan the next move. He couldn't see anything wrong, but he had this deep nagging feeling that something was seriously wrong. He trusted his gut and told his crew to get out. The second they made it out, the entire living room collapsed. The real fire wasn't in the kitchen, it was underneath them in the basement. Afterward, when they asked the lieutenant why he pulled everyone out, he had no idea. He actually joked that maybe he had extrasensory perception. You've probably been told to trust your gut in the past, but is it a good idea? And what was really happening when the firefighter made that call to evacuate? Some people say that intuition is like a psychic ability, like telepathy or a sixth sense, or even a link to the universe. Today, we're diving into the latest research into the science of intuition, and what better way to kick that off than with a game? Welcome to Trust Your Gut, the decision-making game show. Our first game is called The 3 Eyes, where we figure out if your decision-making skills are instinct, intuition, or insight. I'm going to show you 3 questions, and you need to tell me which you think it is. Are you ready? Okay, here's question 1. You're hiking through the woods, and suddenly a bear appears. You don't think, you just run. Is this intuition, instinct, or insight? That's instinct. It's hardwired for survival. You don't analyse, you don't predict, you just react. Question 2. You've been racking your brain, trying to remember an actor's name, and then 2 days later, the name randomly popped into your head. Is this intuition, instinct, or insight? That's insight. Your subconscious kept working on the problem while you weren't thinking about it. And boom, the answer arrives when you least expect it. The final question, question 3. You have 2 job offers. One looks really good on paper, but something about it feels off. So you go with the other one instead. Is this intuition, instinct, or insight? That's intuition. Your brain is picking up on subtle cues from past experiences, even if you can't explain why. Thanks for playing The 3 Eyes. Trust Your Gut will return later with our second game. You've probably been told to trust your gut in the past, but is it a good idea? And what was really happening when the firefighter made that call to evacuate? Cognitive psychologist Gary Klein studied the firefighter while he was researching how experts make split-second life or death decisions. When Klein interviewed the lieutenant, he kept asking, "What made you realise there was a danger?" But the firefighter couldn't explain it. At that moment, he just felt like something was wrong. And it's not just firefighters who do this. A patient is rushed into the emergency room. Chest pain, sweating. The ER doctor has seconds to decide, is it a heart attack or is it something else? There's no time for extensive tests or to analyse every possibility. They have to trust their gut. A study found that many experienced ER doctors can spot a heart attack almost instantly before any tests come back. Another experiment looked at professional stock market traders. With the markets moving fast, there are millions of dollars on the line, and they have to decide, do they buy or sell? They don't have time to analyse every detail, so they trust their gut, and somehow it worked. Their intuition was often more accurate than pure data analysis, but when they were asked why, they couldn't put it into words. It just felt right. Klein calls this recognition-primed decision-making. It's pattern recognition. The lieutenant had been in so many fires that his brain picked up on tiny cues, like the fire being too hot and too quiet. These anomalies sent his spidey senses tingling. Emergency room doctors have seen so many heart attacks, they can recognise the symptoms immediately. And traders pick up on subtle market patterns over years of experience. Intuition works best where experience gives you exposure to patterns, but the patterns need to give you reliable repeated feedback whenever the circumstances are exactly the same. So even with experience, a firefighter will have more reliable intuition than a stock trader because stock markets are really unpredictable. Whether you're a musician, a chef or a parent, the more you practice and the more experience you get, the more your brain learns to recognise patterns and you can make decisions without thinking too hard. It's how you know whether a song is slightly out of key, a recipe needs a little bit more salt, or if your baby's crying because they're hungry or they're tired. But how do scientists study this? How do they actually figure out what's happening in our brains and our bodies when we trust our intuition? Imagine you're playing a card game with 4 piles of cards. Your goal is to win as much money as possible. But here's the catch. 2 of the decks are secretly rigged against you. This is exactly what happened in a famous psychology experiment. 2 of the decks were bad. They had bigger wins on the cards, but also more losses, and they were designed to make players lose over time. The other 2 were giving smaller but consistent wins, but also smaller losses. At first, people drew the cards randomly, but here's where it gets interesting. It took about 50 cards before participants consciously realised which of the decks were bad. But after only 10 cards, participants started sweating slightly when they were reaching for the bad decks. Their hands hesitated. Their bodies were literally reacting to danger, even though they hadn't consciously figured out the pattern yet. Well, what's happening here? Well, the brain is always scanning for patterns, picking up on tiny clues without us even realising it. Your gut feeling is your subconscious working faster than your conscious mind. Imagine looking at a chessboard for just 5 seconds and then being asked to perfectly recreate every piece on it. It sounds impossible, right? Psychologists tested chess masters and beginners on their ability to memorise chess positions. The chess masters aced it, placing almost every piece perfectly. And the beginners, total chaos. It looked like the chess masters had superhuman memories, but then the researchers changed just one thing and everything fell apart. Instead of showing real chess positions, the researchers randomised the pieces into completely nonsense positions, one that would never actually happen in a real game. And suddenly, the chess masters struggled just as much as the beginners. Because they hadn't been memorising individual pieces, they were memorising patterns. From studying and playing thousands of hours of chess, their brains had grouped familiar layouts into chunks. Welcome back to Trust Your Gut. It's time for game number 2, Reflex versus Reflect. I'm going to show you 3 questions. Answer them as fast as you can. Are you ready? Go. What's 2 plus 2? What colour is the sky? Complete the phrase, peanut butter and. That felt effortless, right? Your brain instantly pulled the answers just from your memory. That's fast thinking, that's intuition. But round 2 is a little bit harder. What's 17 multiplied by 24? If a bat and a ball cost $1.10 in total, and the bat costs $1 more than the ball, how much is the ball? If you answered that last question too fast, you might have got it wrong. Most people instinctively say 10 cents, but the real answer is 5 cents. Your brain tried to take a shortcut, and shortcuts don't always work. Thanks for playing Reflex versus Reflect. Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman discovered that our brains run on 2 systems when making decisions. System 1 is the autopilot. It's fast, effortless, and instinctive. It helps you to instantly recognise faces, finish common phrases, and dodge a ball that's flying at your head. It's great for snap judgments, but also it's really prone to errors. System 1 loves shortcuts and goes with what feels right. And then there's System 2. It kicks in when you solve a tough math problem, apply critical thinking, or you're making a big life decision. It's careful, logical, and deliberate, but it's also lazy. If System 1 can handle something, System 2 won't even show up. But here's the big question. Big life decisions, things like choosing a career, buying a house, or deciding to start a family, are way more complicated than playing cards or chess. So can intuition actually help us with massive life-changing choices? Psychologist Adrian Camilleri asked people to list the 10 biggest decisions of their lives, and then reflect on how they made each decision. Did they make a quick decision relying on their gut? Or was it logical and analytical? And they were asked to say whether they felt the decisions turned out to be good or bad. Maybe you can relate to the kind of big life decisions they made, like education, such as whether to go to college, career, things like picking a profession, whether to quit a job or start a business, relationships, like breaking up with someone or getting married, family questions, like whether you decide to have children or not and whether you should get a pet, and financial decisions like buying a house, making big investments or planning for retirement. Well, what did the study find? It found that people who made choices that aligned with their values and took time to think things through were a lot more satisfied in the long run. But those who made snap decisions or ignored what really mattered to them, they were the ones who looked back with regret. The decisions people felt best about were the ones that focused on self-growth and led to a meaningful life. They made them aligned with their sense of purpose and following their morals. Just like how you can make a good life decision right now by booping the like button to spread this video to more people. Thank you. Imagine you're deciding whether to take a new job in a different city. You've researched the company, the role, the location, and it all looks perfect on paper. But then as you sit down to make the final decision, your chest tightens and you start to get this sudden sense of unease. You're not sure where it's coming from, but something doesn't feel right. Or maybe in the same situation, you feel a rush of excitement, like your heart is pumping faster when you think about the opportunity. Where do these emotional reactions come from? As you go about your daily life and encounter situations, your body sends signals like your heart racing, muscles tensing, or even your posture changing. These are your somatic markers. Over time, your brain learns to connect these physical reactions to past experiences. So if you've made a decision before that turned out well, your body might give you a little boost of happiness, encouraging you to make a similar choice. On the flip side, if a decision led to a negative outcome, your body might send a signal of discomfort. It's like a warning to avoid taking that path again. But we have experiences all the time, so trying to trace back where our body originally learned to send these positive or negative signals can be very difficult. And science shows that the signals they're sending might even be completely wrong. Imagine you're at a roulette wheel and the ball has landed on red the last 5 times. Which colour do you think it's more likely to land on next? Red or black? If you said black, you're falling for the gambler's fallacy. Every spin is different, and the probability of it landing on red or black is exactly the same as it was in the previous spin. But in this situation, a lot of people will believe that their gut is telling them a pattern exists when it really doesn't. After a big event, like a stock market drop or a cup final game, have you ever felt like you just knew that was going to happen, even if you didn't predict it beforehand? This is hindsight bias at work. And you need to be careful with this one, because if you believe this too often, it can make you feel overconfident in trusting your gut in the future. Have you ever met someone who is dressed really well and seems to speak really confidently at work? And did you then assume they must be highly skilled or really good at their job? This is called the halo effect. When we see a positive trait in someone, it leads us to believe they have other positive traits too. Hiring managers need to be especially aware of this so they don't just hire the best dressed or the most charismatic candidates. And it works in reverse too. If someone has a negative trait, we assume they have other negative traits as well. I'm sure some of your friends or family have been raving about a new diet. They can't stop talking about how amazing it is, and they share stories and books from people who have had success with it. But they ignore scientific studies showing that it's no more effective than any other diet, or it's even potentially harmful. This is confirmation bias, where we seek out or interpret information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. Imagine there's 2 bottles of wine available on a restaurant menu, a $10 bottle and a $20 bottle. Which one do you think is the higher quality wine? Price and branding can lead us to infer that something is higher quality, even when blind taste tests for wine often prove otherwise. Each of these examples shows us a different cognitive bias at work and how our intuition can trick us. It can feel right, but it's actually leading us in the wrong direction. But don't dismiss your intuition just yet. Neuroscientists have found a way you can harness the power of your intuition to make better decisions. Joel Pearson has been studying intuition for 10 years, and he developed a SMILE framework in his book, The Intuition Toolkit. I'll link it in the description below. If your intuition passes the SMILE test, it might be worth trusting it. S stands for self-awareness. Before trusting your gut, check how you're feeling. Are you stressed, tired, or emotional? Strong emotions, whether excitement or fear, can hijack your intuition and make you overconfident in a bad decision. If you're in a heightened emotional state, just take a step back before making a big call. M stands for mastery. Intuition works best in the areas where you've put in the time. If you spent years driving, your gut instinct about when a car will change lanes is probably solid. But if you're new to being around dogs, your intuition on whether a bark is playful or aggressive is really just a guess. So make sure your gut instinct is backed by real experience in situations which have given you reliable, consistent feedback. I stands for impulse control. Not every gut feeling is intuition. Sometimes it's just an impulse. If you're craving junk food, that's probably not intuition. That's probably dopamine talking. The key is learning to tell the difference between a deep instinctive knowing and a fleeting urge. Well, how can we check? Intuition tends to feel calm rather than urgent. L stands for low probability trap. Your gut is terrible at predicting rare events. So if you're making a decision where the odds are really low, like winning the lottery or being struck by lightning, then intuition won't help. For anything based on pure chance, skip the gut feeling and go with logic instead. E stands for environment. Your intuition thrives in a familiar territory. So a firefighter can trust their gut in a burning building because they've been there before. But if you're in a completely new situation, your instincts might be totally off. So the next time your intuition is shouting for you to do what it wants, just smile. If you can check off these smile rules, you can trust your gut. If not, take a little bit more time to think it through. Though, don't think about it too much. If you get stuck in analysis paralysis when making decisions, then check out this video on the psychology behind overthinking and 4 ways you can overcome it immediately. Like if you found this video helpful, subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.